Hello and welcome to the Purpose Pursuit podcast with me, Hannah Miller. How are you, friends? How are you doing? We are back together today discussing all things purpose and how we find that in our everyday life. And I wanted to use an angle today that's come from lots of conversations that I've been having with you on socials, that I've been having with my friends, that I've been having with my own children. And it started because of GCSE and A-level results time. We've had a son do his GCSEs this year, no A-levels this year. We had that last year. And I've got lots of friends whose children have been doing GCSEs and A-levels. And I'm sure lots of you are in that stage. Or if not, you know people who are. And if not, you've been in it yourself. And it got me thinking about what a high stress that time can be, especially for A-level students. And they're thinking about, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do with my life? Who am I meant to be? And what's my purpose? And unfortunately, our younger selves probably didn't have the advice and wisdom that we needed. And so on socials, I got talking to you all and saying, what do you wish you knew about purpose when you were younger? What do you now know, or are you discovering about this concept of purpose that you wished you'd known when you were younger? And I thought about this myself, and I thought about how off track I was with the idea of purpose when I was younger. I thought about the fact that I made decisions that probably weren't the best ones when I was younger. And I wished I'd known more about purpose then, like I do now. And so I thought I'd gather some of those thoughts together and we could talk about those together, and you could see how that wisdom applies to your life now. But also you might want to share this with somebody in your life who's a bit younger, who's thinking about what to do next. One of the main things you talked about, and I agree with, is to ignore rubbish career advice. Some of the careers provision, I'm sorry to say, is pretty awful. I mean, I remember doing something when I was at school where you put in some thoughts and you were given ideas about what you should do for a living. And Laura was telling me, that's Laura who I work with, that her husband David, when he did this, the result that he got was that he should be a lighthouse keeper. I mean, I've never heard anything so niche and quite so ridiculous. But some career advice that we are given is totally rubbish. It's rubbish because I don't believe a computer can tell you what career you should take. It's rubbish because it doesn't start with the concept of who you are as a unique person. It's often rubbish because it can be so academically driven or security driven. And there can be so much pressure to do things or take certain jobs or pick from a very narrow group of jobs. You can be a doctor, a nurse, a teacher. And we don't really veer into the abundance of professions that are out there. And I wonder whether actually starting with a specific job is perhaps even not the best thing to do. And that one of the problems is starting with a career. Now, there are some of you out there that you will always have known what your career is and you know what you want to do. You were little and you wanted to be a doctor. You were a teenager and you wanted to be a doctor. You were an adult and you wanted to be a doctor. But I just don't think that equating everything so directly with the exact career is perhaps the best place to start. Maybe it should be less about specific jobs and more about who you are as a person and moving closer to that. So I think there is a lot of really poor career advice out there. What makes career advice better is to understand the drivers of that individual, the values of that individual, their interests and their passions, and also their skills and strengths. And if you can get that stuff all together in your understanding of yourself, you're going to get a lot closer to what you want to do. And I'm not sure telling somebody 18 exactly what career they should be doing is the wisest thing either. They're young and they've got a lot of growing to do. And we have this potential to project onto other people what we think they should do. So I think the first thing I'd say is hold career advice loosely and just take the steps in front of you. There's another thing that I think I'd say that came out of my conversations with you, and that kind of leads on to what I've just said. It is less about a job title and it's more about being and less about doing. I think if we can extricate purpose from what your job title is, the younger that a person is, the happier they're going to be. I spend a lot of time working with people. My book talks about this. My whole feelings about life are that purpose is this human right that comes in so many different forms. It comes through the roles that we play, the life that we lead, the values that we have, the faith that we have, all sorts of things. And it's not just about the job title that we have. And if we're looking for everything to be met by our job, and we're setting young people up with that expectation, they are going to be disappointed. They're going to feel like their job is nowhere near as good as they thought it could be. And perhaps that's why we're seeing a lot of career shift, because they're thinking that their job is going to meet all those needs. So a job should be something that we enjoy, that gives us purpose. And especially as life goes by, we want more and more of that. But if we see purpose just in our doing and not in our being, who we are as a human, our gifts to the people around us, the life that we're leading, we are going to struggle. And, I think back to when I first left work and had my first baby, and I think about other people in that life phase. If everything is around this job that you've had and suddenly you aren't in that sphere anymore, where's your sense of purpose? Well, then you start to find it in bringing up your children. Great. But then your children grow up and then they leave home. And then the number of women who say to me, well, where's my purpose now? Or men, where's my purpose? Nobody's at home. And we've got to see that purpose has a role in our life, whatever the season, whatever the role, whether we're paid to do it or we're not paid to do it. I think another thing I want to talk about is let's get rid of these boxes that we put people in. You're academic, you're not academic. You're academic, you're creative. You're this, you're that. I think it's so unhelpful. I think it's limiting. I think it reduces our expectations of ourselves. I think it's just not true. I don't understand where this language comes from. I get really bothered when people talk about creatives. Are there uncreative people? Because I don't know who they are. There are creative people who bring processes and systems. There are creative people who are engineers. There are creative people who write music. There are creative people who make beautiful dinners. There are creative people who build businesses. I think we've got this, there are creative mathematicians and creative scientists, and it makes me frustrated that we use these boxes with people that make them feel that unless they're in a certain type of job or they have a certain type of personality, that they can't access these things. And we're cutting off a whole section of our personality and who we're made to be as humans if we don't consider that we're all creative. We've all got brains that can be sharpened and used in different ways. That doesn't mean universities for everyone. That doesn't mean careers that involve that kind of track are right for everybody. But we need to stop boxing people into absurd categories that make people feel that they're just not good enough. I have a friend who said to me that, one of her children is considered the academic one, not by her, but by other people. And their other child was seen as the creative one. And how limiting that was for that second child, who then was like, well, am I not considered that I have an academic ability? It's so ludicrous. And on the flip side, the academic child almost being told, well, creativity is not for you. That's not something you can do. So this is something I could really get on a soapbox about. Get yourself out of these categories. Stop thinking that certain people make doctors and certain people make nurses and certain people make this. Yes, your personality will fit roles, and yes, your skills will fit roles, but you are not in a box of whether you are creative or uncreative or academic or not academic. It is unhelpful. And also, let's remove this hierarchy. Let's do our best to try and remove this hierarchy. We all say we're trying to, but we're so led by this, and I know I am too, of how people perform in exams, how people do at school, how, what their career says about them. If we can start to remove that hierarchy, will help people find the right kind of work for who they are. Okay, another point I think is that we need to take time to discover our purpose. As in, loads of you said to me on social media, it grows over time. You are not going to know this when you're 18. If we look back at ourselves, those of us who are older, who are happy enough to feel like we are living a sense of purpose, I look back and realise there was so much I didn't know, and it is an evolving, growing, developing process. And you might set out to do something that you think's a really good idea and you don't stick at it. It seems to be that increasingly people are more comfortable with changing jobs, shifting careers. But back when I was in my 20s, I started a career in advertising and I left it. And that was a bit more controversial then. I mean, I think a lot more 20-somethings do that, and they think, actually, this isn't for me. When I did it, there was a lot of people who had a bit of a hissy fit about it around me and thought I was mad. But we've got to learn to follow the clues that help us get closer to where we want to. And most 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds will agree that your purpose and discovering about what's important to you will take time. And you need to invest in that. So you need to actually take the time to do that. That's why I run a course. That's why I've written a book. It's not something that a computer can tell you. It's not something you can do in 5 minutes. You've got to take the lessons from your life and to build them forward. I think kind of a connected thought to that as well is that you've got to try things. Give something a go and learn from it. It's a really good book called Design Your Life. I can't remember what the authors are. It's two people wrote the book. But they were engineers by background. And they talked about the process of development in the engineering process, that you keep trying things till you get closer to where you're trying to get to. And nobody thinks that's failure. Everyone thinks that's the design process. But when it comes to human beings, we think it's got to be you make a good decision and you follow through on that. And even if it's a bad decision, you should stick with it. And we've got to learn to use a bit more of that engineering process to how we discover the good stuff about our lives. Try something. And if you don't want to do it anymore or it doesn't work for you, learn from that and get closer to where you want to. That doesn't mean we should give something up every 5 minutes, by the way. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying there are times to stick with it. There are times to let something go. Another thing I want to really mention is that you need to learn to trust your own instincts. There are things that you will know in your gut that you should be listening to. If you are aware that there are decisions you've made or job roles that you've got that aren't working for you, you've got to trust yourself that you know yourself. And also that you can take responsibility for the choices that you've made, both the previous ones you've made and the ones you're going to make going forward. You can't subcontract that out to other people. We've got to take ownership of the fact that I don't think this is right for me, and I've got to make an adjustment, and to trust your gut in that as much as you possibly can. Again, that doesn't mean we have to be foolish. It doesn't mean that every emotion that we feel we should respond to. If I'd responded to every emotion I'd felt, I would have stopped my business about 100 times over. So I'm not saying that every time you don't feel like doing something, you should stop. But a growing sense of instinct is important to listen to, where you realise that this feeling isn't going away, this sense isn't going away, that this is not the right thing for me. I think there's another really big point I want to make, which is that we've got to learn to care less what other people think of us. I think back to when I was going to university and even my A-levels, I had well-meaning sort of advice from parents, from siblings, from other adults that wasn't the best advice. First of all, in my A-levels, I was doing English A-level and music and business studies, and I didn't find that the English teacher that I was given, I didn't find them very easy, and there's a reasons for this. And so I decided to drop English and to switch to maths. So I literally went from English to maths. And I look back at that now and I think, what was I doing? I think I was led by friends who were doing maths. I was led by peer pressure that maths is a really good A-level to do. And I should have thought about moving from English to maybe something a little bit more connected to that, because I didn't love it. I could do it, but I didn't love it. And I did it because I thought it looked good and it was a good, secure thing to go for. And then when I came to university, I decided to study, it was called commerce, BCom at Birmingham University. It's not called that anymore, but that's what it was called at the time. So it was essentially a business and economics degree. Everyone said it would be a really good choice to make to get onto a good graduate recruitment track and to get a secure job that would, be really good for my future. And yes, I was interested in advertising and marketing at the time. So I can't blame everybody for this. I have to take responsibility. And it wasn't a car crash in any way. And there were lots of parts of it I enjoyed, and I got a good degree and I got a good outcome. But I look back and I think if I'd really trusted myself and cared less about what other people thought of me, I probably would have studied English or music. I probably would have gone down that road. And I now hope that one day I will get to study English at some level again. And I want to come back to that or something alongside or adjacent to that. So I guess we have to work with what we know at the time. We have to work with what we know about ourselves. But what I'm saying there is that we will make wrong decisions, but also we will be led by what other people think of us, well-meaning individuals that have perhaps a different agenda to what's necessarily the best thing for you. We have to live, we have to pay our bills. I'm not in any way advocating for us just making wild decisions, but if I look at my own children who are at this point right now, I want them to study and learn about the things that are going to give them the most interest, which will inevitably lead them towards the right kind of work. And I just see that decision will help them get closer to what they actually want to do. And if they study and they end up working in a different career completely, well, that's okay. That happens all the time. And actually, it's no big deal at all. Follow a really good friend of mine who leads a global charity. She said, if you follow those passions, your purpose will reveal itself. And I think that's such a good piece of advice. And if we can reduce what society thinks about us, if we can reduce what parents and siblings and other people who may have a completely different set of values and priorities to you, then we are going to get closer to the right thing. And it's also, by the way, okay to do a job for 10 years and do something different for the next 10 years. Who says that that's okay? We've got to remove this job for life baggage. Some people will have a job for life and that's what they want to do. But it's no better than somebody having 3 jobs, one for a decade at a time, or 4 jobs or 5 jobs, and so on. Yes, we need to stick at things and give them a really good go. I'm definitely not suggesting that we try something for 5 minutes and move on. But it also doesn't have to be for life for it to have been worthwhile. I was a teacher for 10 years. I am really proud of the 10 years. I loved being a teacher. I advocate for teaching. I would love to see other people go into the teaching profession because it's one of the most important things that anybody can do with their life. But it was an end of a season for me. And I'm not going to let anybody reduce my contribution to teaching because I didn't do it for 40 years. It's a massive achievement to do it for 40 years. It was right for me to do it for 10. So learn to feel like, actually, I can do this for a period of time and I can move on and I don't need anybody else's baggage around that. And I think the last thing I'd want to say really is you will get there in the end if you are willing to keep trying, to keep learning, to keep taking on feedback, to keep focusing on what brings you and the people around you the best outcomes. And that is about, the more you're following those nuggets of joy and interest, the closer you will get to living a life that includes purpose, whether it's in your paid work or whether it's in your unpaid work. They are of equal importance. I hope those little bits and bobs will give you a bit of encouragement today. If you're listening to this and you're 18, please take heed of these things. If you're listening to this and you're 80, then there's still plenty of time for you to make those adjustments and to listen to them. I did something a little bit different today to finish off. I wrote a little letter, just a short letter, as if I was talking to younger me. And I've depersonalised it a bit because I'd love this to be useful to any person listening. You can still speak to your younger self, and this can still be useful to a younger person who is listening. And younger is anybody who's younger than me. And that would be fine to be classified as young. So here we go. Dear younger me, you'll hear a lot of voices. Some will persuade you, validate you, even lead you. Most will mean well, but not all of them will be right. You see, adults don't always know best. Parents don't always know best. We worry. We want you to be safe, secure, and happy, and we want to protect you from any kind of pain. Sometimes, without even realising it, we will project our own needs and our missed opportunities onto you. You'll doubt yourself. You'll wonder who you are and whether you have what it takes. But confidence will come if you let it. It will grow as you listen, practice, and step out. Listen out for the voices that truly see you, those that value you for who you are, and they call out courage in you. Remember that bravery isn't recklessness. You don't need to be foolish to be bold. Let their encouragement and your own joy guide you closer to your meaning. But don't expect a neat conclusion, because the truth is, as cheesy as it sounds, life is a journey. It is full of surprising side missions and painful detours. Both the joy and the heartache will matter. They will shape you and stretch you and give you depth to your story. Don't run from them. Don't hide from them. Let them grow you. Thanks for listening.